All right, guys, welcome back. Another episode, Nothing's Off the Table. We have a great episode in store for you today. I'm sitting across from a very well-respected author, award-winning historian, and one of the leading voices examining the rapid expansion of legalized gambling in America, Jonathan Cohen. Thank you so much for coming out today, man.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jonathan is the author of Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling, which is a groundbreaking book that explores how sports betting exploded across the United States, the powerful forces behind its growth, aka the Illuminati, and the consequences we're only beginning to understand. While Jonathan isn't someone who comes from recovery himself, he has spent years studying gambling, public policy, and the impact these industries have on individuals, families, and communities. His work shines a light on what many of us in recovery have experienced firsthand, the reality behind the advertisements, the apps, and the promise of easy money. There are often devastating personal costs. I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Man, thanks for everything you're doing and for having me a small part of it.
Thanks for everything you're doing, bro.
Okay. We can just pat each other on the back for an hour and then call it a day.
Batman and Robin combo right now. So normally when a guest comes on, they tell their story and all these things. So for today, I've prepared some questions that I think are going to be, you'll be very well versed in answering. I don't think you have any problem with these questions. So my first question for you is really, why gambling? Like, what implored you to start studying gambling, and what's going on, and kind of your little bit of your background?
Right. Like, as you're saying, it's like a weird fit. Like, I don't, not only do I not have like a story of recovery, like I don't even have like a great uncle who like lost a family fortune or whatever. There's this sort of well-known phenomenon in social science that like the things that happen to you when you're like 16, 17, 18 are like the most animating moments sort of in your life. And for me, politically speaking, it was the Great Recession that happened when I was like 16, 17. And I basically, after that, like got obsessed with like the American dream, like as an idea, as like an intellectual idea, as someone who like grew up in an upper middle class household and by all accounts like was like living the American dream. And I also was like obsessed with Bruce Springsteen at the time, and that's like his whole canon is about the American dream. And so I went to graduate school because it's like I was like born to go to graduate school. I was like out of the womb, they might as well have handed me a PhD. You know what I mean? But like wanting to like look at the American dream, but they don't like let you like show up as a first year grad student and be like, oh, I'm going to write a 400-page book about the history of the American dream. So my advisor, she still makes fun of me. I would like go to her office every week with like a different dissertation topic, like a different idea. But they all sort of centered around this idea of like sort of working class people like trying to make it big. And eventually I like stumbled my way basically through luck into the lottery as like the clearest manifestation of the American dream and the exact kind of topic that people who grew up like me never even like think about and don't participate in, like look down, if anything, on people who do it. And then you can imagine sort of the snowball rolling from there. Like I wrote the book. The best part about writing the book was like getting to go on podcasts and like becoming like the de facto public intellectual about the American state lottery system. Like I'm the guy. Like sports betting, a lot of smart people who know a lot of policy stuff. If you want to talk to someone at the lottery and you call someone other than me, like you're an idiot. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm the guy. So, and then this as simplistic as to say, like I wrote the lottery book. Sports betting was coming up, as you know, like the legal sports betting 2022, 2023, 2024. I was just like, this seems weird, man. Like I've been a sports fan for a long time. Like this seems different. And someone's got to write a book about it. And like, fine, like I'll do it. Like truly, that was like as much as I had to go on. Of like, there seems like this is going to cause problems for like young men, especially. Like this seems like it's going to like mess up professional sports. And that's really all I had to go on was like, all right, I already have like a bit of a sort of profile in the space, a little bit of expertise. Let's just like see what I can find. And that's how I landed on it.
So before you started doing all this research, like what was your idea of specifically sports betting? Because when I grew up, right, sports betting, when I came across it was like the frat bro thing to be doing kind of in college when I got introduced to it. But now it's become like the 7th grade bro thing to be doing. Jesus. It's like, what the hell is going on? I had
even worse because I mean, I grew up like, again, like suburban Boston, like Jewish community. Like it was like the Pete Rose thing. It was like the Tim Donaghy, like it was like this thing that was happening in the shadows somewhere else. We weren't doing it. We didn't know anyone who were doing, or we More like we didn't know anyone who we knew was doing it, but they probably were.
Yeah.
Even if they were doing it on some website based in Curacao or whatever. And it was just not part of my life. It was not part of my calculus, and why would it be? Like, it wasn't legal. Like, I just didn't know. I really sort of. I'm a big board game player, that's my real origin story. So I'm a big board game player, and so I love like games, and I'm totally in line with like gamifying stuff. Like, oh, it's not enough to like watch the Cincinnati Reds versus the Marlins. It's like way more fun if you like have a sense of Ellie De La Cruz is going to hit 2 home runs or whatever at minus 135 or plus 135 plus 235. So it makes sense to me, and that once I found out about it, but like it really was like this like opaque world at the time. It was not something that I was like, oh, like me like peeking over the fence trying to like get in on, which sounds like sort of maybe what it was for you a little bit from the get-go.
Yeah, so it's funny. My dad's dad was a compulsive gambler. Gambled away the house 3 times growing up for my dad. The gambling gene skipped over my father because of the trauma, and like my grandfather would drive my dad to Connecticut 2 hours away to go bet on Jai Alai.
Yeah,
which was like a fixed Asian game with a ball and like some weird like
it's like squash for like old men in the park. Yes.
So my dad was traumatized by it, but for me, I started gambling in casinos when I was 15 on a family vacation in the Bahamas, and then I came across a bookie in college, and like that was it. I was I'm an athlete. I played sports my whole life. I grew up. My dad played college football. Like, my life revolved around athletics. So I was like, this is amazing. Like, I could do this all the time. And obviously it fucking spiraled from there. But, you know, most people, our parents, our grandparents, sports betting has always been around in that atmosphere.
Even in a bad way. Even if like you knew it was out there and it was evil and it was corrupting your sports or whatever. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But now it's legal. And what happened, I believe it was around 2018 that things started getting legalized. How did this go from like Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, coming out and saying, gambling is bad. Gambling is bad for the integrity of our sports. We will never allow gambling.
The number one threat to the integrity of football is what he said in 2011.
To now they're FanDuel's biggest partner.
Yeah.
How did we get here? Quick moment before we get back to the episode. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, I want to tell you about Right Choice Recovery in New Jersey. Recovery changed my life, and I know how important it is to have the right people around you when you decide to ask for help. Whether you're struggling with gambling or substance abuse, Right Choice Recovery has you covered. What I love about Right Choice Recovery is the compassion. No judgment, no shame, just real people trying to help others get their lives back. The information is in the description below. Don't wait to make the call.
Right. So really slowly and then all at once, right, is really what it was, right? So 2018, there was a Supreme Court decision that didn't legalize sports gambling, but allowed states to legalize sports gambling for the first time for all sorts of boring 10th Amendment reasons that I'm sure your listeners are really eager for me to talk about in a lot more detail. And so what it was is it's sort of, now it's up to states, and states can do whatever they want. And places like New Jersey, Delaware, they were up within a couple weeks. New York sort of took its time, waited until COVID, 2021, maybe 2022 it started. But all of a sudden, within the last now 8 years, we've had 40 states that have sports gambling in some form, 32 plus DC that have it online. So that's one thing. Now it's legal, fine. But to your point, it's not inevitable that like just because it's legal, the NFL is going to partner with it and like going to completely do a 180. But this has been the, critics would say, hypocritical sort of view or position of the leagues, which is they said that gambling was a threat to the integrity of their product forever. And now that it's legal, they say the opposite. They say we need to bear hug gambling. We need to keep it as close to the vest as possible to preserve the integrity of the product. But it's like, wait, I thought this was a violation of the integrity. No. Illegal gambling, now they say, is the is a threat to the integrity. Legal gambling is good because now we can monitor, we can see whether Calvin Ridley is gambling when he shouldn't, the wide receiver from the Atlanta Falcons is gambling when he's not supposed to be, and we can catch him. Oh, and by the way, we can make like $2.3 billion or whatever it is per year on the gambling economy.
And the flip side of that is, by the way, there's still bookies. I have plenty of friends who don't want to bet on the apps because they don't want to pay taxes on it, and they'd rather just bet through.
Or they don't want to tell their fiance or whatever it is. Yeah,
correct. And also, like, we're seeing Terry Rozier and a lot of college players, they're getting caught. And I mean, Terry Rozier might go to prison. They might make an example out of him and send him to prison for what he did.
And you got to think Adam Silver is somewhere in New York in some other big fancy building thinking his lucky stars every single night that it was Terry Rozier and not like LeBron or Anthony Edwards or Luka Doncic. Like, because the number one product that the NBA and the professional sports leagues have is not the integrity of their game, which is what they say. It's the perception of the integrity of their game. Correct. That's their number one. The worst thing that could happen is if people view the NBA, NFL, whatever, to be like professional wrestling, to be like rigged. And that's exactly the kind of thing that the Terry Rozier kind of scandals, that that's the feelings that they give off. They give the sense. People already thought the NFL was rigged. Like, the league has it out for Patrick Mahomes. They want Taylor Swift to be on the Super Bowl winning podium, blah, blah, blah. Now layer money on top of it. Like, how much more so are they inclined to think that the game is rigged? In the Terry Rozier case, again, if it was a bigger name player, like existential crisis, I think, all of a sudden for the league. And the kind of thing that we were promised was never going to happen. The kind of thing we were promised was going to go away once legalization arrived.
The MLB almost had that with Shohei Ohtani and Matt.
Jeez, that's a whole other thing.
Okay, so
when are you going to get Ippei on the show? That's a huge get.
Okay, so I had Matthew Boyer.
Yeah.
Who is the bookie.
Right.
Matthew Boyer is now one of my very, very, very good friends. I interviewed him before he went to prison, and then we've stayed in touch, obviously. And then he got home from prison, and we've been in touch. And I was just in LA recently. I went to dinner with him and his wife. I said, bro, just fucking shoot me straight. Was it Ohtani or not? And he starts laughing. He's like, I don't think so. I looked at his wife. She's like, and I just said to him, like, I don't care how much money you're making. How do you not notice $17 million going from your account?
I would notice like $17 from my account, just for the record.
Me
you know
too.
What I mean? Yeah.
Me too. And that's my point. But like, I know that there's a ton of athletes who do gamble. Like, I know a lot of people,
collegiate especially,
who gamble, and like they're not not allowed to. And NBA players are not allowed to bet on the NBA, and they can't bet at team facilities.
Right.
Like, when they're home, they can bet on the NFL and whatever. Right. But the addiction part of that is that it doesn't matter how much money you have or you don't have, right? People bet what's relative to them when they're in addiction. It could spiral for anybody. It can spiral from anybody.
Or I'm thinking of Terry Rozier or your conversation with Keishon Boutte. Like, these are like the most competitive guys in the universe.
Yes.
And they, not to mention the fact that they think it's free money because they don't realize how easily they're going to get caught because of these new integrity monitoring systems. But like, if you could make $5,000, I don't care if you make $17 million, like, you're going to take $5,000 if it's sitting on, like, it's how can we, my problem with this is not, I have all sorts of problems with this, but it's like, how did we not go a little bit more slowly, go a little bit more methodically, like say like, okay, this is going to happen. We're going to have a bunch of young men, many of whom grew up poor, who are going to have access to like gambling for the first time on their cell phones, who have all sorts of insider information about gambling. Of course, they're going to try to do it. How did we not sort of roll this out more slowly with better athlete education? It would have been better for all involved. It would have been better for sports, would have been better for the athletes. And it was just like greed. It's just like, no, we just want to make as much money as fast as possible.
Do you think that we legalized sports betting before we fully understood the consequences?
Yeah. I would say from my reporting in Colorado, like they basically didn't give a shit about the consequences. It was just like, we need to get this up as fast as possible. The companies wanted to capture market share. The state wanted to, of course, make tax revenue, but also like be a leader to hopefully like attract a sports betting company to like set up shop in Colorado.
Yeah.
And they put all of $130,000 per year into like problem gambling research, which was, to their credit, is like the number that was quoted to them by the Problem Gambling Council of Colorado, but it was complete bullshit. Like, everyone knew it was insufficient, and they basically were like not, and people have said to me on the record, and I quote them directly, like they were not thinking about problem gambling. It was just not part of the conversation. They didn't think about it. There were, I think at the time, 11 therapists for the state of Colorado who worked on problem gambling, or who like treated problem gambling clients, but only 3 of them had actually the highest level of certification where they're like actually specialized in gambling addiction. Like 8 of them are just like, oh, I'm a therapist, I do addiction treatment. Like, sure, okay, what do you have like the special qualification to like let you treat addiction treatment? Oh no, like I just like, this is like one of the things I list on my website. It's like, all right, like maybe Colorado could have like ensured there was a pipeline in place for addiction treatment, not to mention all sorts of other consumer protections that, of course, they didn't even think about legalizing or putting in place.
You've been on record calling this a public health crisis. Explain to me why.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the point where if this was like Louise over here is like running into trouble and like John over there is running into trouble, it's like, okay, shit happens. Like people run into trouble with all sorts of things. Doesn't mean everything's a public health crisis. But we have enough unrelated individuals, enough unrelated cases, and enough different circumstances of people who are running into harm that it's clear that it's sort of reaching the point of this public health crisis. To take a metaphor, like if like you fall in a river, it's like, all right, you idiot, you should have been paying attention. You weren't watching out. But if like 45 people a week or a month or whatever fall into the river, it's like, okay, you know what? Actually, we have an infrastructural problem, and we need to set up guardrails around the river to stop people from falling in, because clearly, like it's sloped downward or whatever, that we're making people trip for some reason. It's no longer about like you individually are irresponsible. And I think we're at that point with gambling, right? Within a few financial quarters of the arrival of legalized gambling, you get a 28% increase in personal bankruptcies, increase in an increase in auto loan delinquencies, a reduction in savings and investment in low-income households, increase in child maltreatment cases, a reduction in food sufficiency, increase in suicides among 18 to 29-year-old men, like all sorts of just like aggregate level statistics. It's like, all right, like once you legalize gambling, this is the shit that's going to start happening in your state, and we can't be like, hey buddy, like you should have used your responsible gambling tools. That really would have helped out.
God.
I know. That's like a trigger word for you. I know. But that's the counter. It's like, it's not a public health issue. This is a responsible gambling issue. This is about a systemic problem, and a public health approach implies systemic solutions.
So when I was gambling, I was either walking into a casino or, I had a bookie, but even the bookie, there was like some guardrails on it in the sense of like, let's just say it how it was. If I lost 100 grand and I only had 10 grand to my name, I couldn't pay him the full amount, right? The difference with gambling today is we have these phones, these things.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
And
a bookie might not make you pay the whole thing. It depends if you have a good relationship, if he knows you're good for it over the long term.
By the way, there were plenty of times where I had 6-figure debts where I settled for half the debt, and he let me keep playing because he knew that like that was good for business.
Keep a customer whole. I don't know. Yeah. Some of these bookies are connected with some people who wouldn't do that, but not every. That's an underrated part of gambling offshore.
Yes,
or with illegally.
And when I started using FanDuel and DraftKings, what I found myself doing was gambling every single penny that I had to my name. And so I lose money to a bookie. Okay, listen, I lost all this money. Here's $7 grand. That's all I got for you. But I at least kept $3 grand, so like I can go and pay maybe a bill or 2 bills, make sure there's food on my table, or I got money for gas, I could pay my car note, whatever the case was. When you're an addict, which I never planned to be, I didn't say, oh, if I cross this line, I'm going to be an addict, and then I have no control over it anymore. It just happens. And then all of a sudden you're stuck, you're trapped. And it's like the hardest thing, gambling for me, more than I was an OxyContin user, I was a cocaine user. I could stop drugs and alcohol like this. No AA, no therapy. I would just stop.
You really could?
I really could. And I could put together like, some clean time without doing anything. Gambling, I've never, since I started gambling, I never went longer than like 2 or 3 weeks max without gambling. And how much does, in your opinion, how does this accessibility change the addiction component of gambling?
Yeah. The word that this all comes down to is friction. If you wanted to gamble on sports before 2018, if you wanted to gamble legally on sports, you had to like get your ass to Las Vegas, walk up to a counter, give a person some cash, and they'll give you like this 8.5 by 11 like slip of paper with all the bets you can place, and you have to like pick, but you can't like. You're betting on who's going to win the Stanley Cup next year, right? Like they're sort of limited in the number of options you can bet on it. So like what's going to be on that paper. And now you can bet on like right now you could bet on, the winner of the next point in a Czech table tennis tournament or like Malaysian women's doubles badminton. No, seriously. And the friction is not there, right? You don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to get off your phone. You can just sit on your couch. You can sit in your podcast studio, wherever you happen to be, and just like in the same way you could endlessly scroll on Instagram, you could just endlessly find things to bet on. So it's just so clearly sort of like supercharged the technology. And not to say that like there aren't other things on the phone that are like either,
of course,
I would say, let's say borderline addictive because they're not medically diagnosably addictive. But like maybe you've actually done this, but like we just like laced like cocaine with heroin or whatever. We've taken this addictive thing like a phone and put this like actually clinically addictive thing, gambling, on it in a way that is like, bookies, a lot of them have these websites that are just like worse version of the FanDuel, DraftKings websites or platforms. But now we've taken those websites, made them sleek, made them cool, push notifications, celebrity endorsements, Charles Barkley's parlay of the day, like whatever the case is, all the dirty little tricks that get you on Instagram for an hour longer than you wanted to be in the middle of the night. Like, but now it's like on a gambling platform. So it's not just you're losing time, it's like you're also losing money while also losing your time.
And your sanity.
In your case, yeah, it sounds like, yeah.
So far, what stories from your research that you've done have really like stuck with you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, okay, this is a story. This isn't so much a story as it is sort of like a recurring story. It's sort of like a thing I've come across a couple of times, and this is maybe going to be weird to say on an addiction podcast. But I think we almost sometimes like do ourselves a disservice to focus too much on addiction. I think we sort of, when we equate, let's say, addiction with gambling harm, or we sort of lose all sorts of gambling harm that's once or many stops short of addiction, right? Lots of people who I think have this experience of losing $1,500 because they fall into this weird little rabbit hole, and then they wake up and they're like, oh my God, what the hell just happened to me? Like, how did I lose that much money? And maybe they never download the app again, or they delete it, come back 6 months later, same thing happens. Like, that person is not addicted, but they're also clearly not having a good time.
Yeah.
And I would maybe even argue that as intense as an addiction can be, there are so many more people having those kinds of experiences that it might, like, if you're like doing like a utilitarian cost benefit analysis or whatever, like we might have so many more of those people having those kinds of experiences that might be like the clearest manifestation of like the problems from gambling. It's not like a full blown addiction, because we don't have great data yet either on like rates of addiction, but like someone who's just like clearly messing up their life in a lower order of difficulty kind of way. Huge problem. I think happening all over the place. Extremely impossible to capture in data and to understand like the prevalence of these kinds of things. But I think it's happening all the time, and we're just not hearing about it.
So I'm hearing about it, and I'll tell you how I'm hearing about it. I get messages every single day, and we've never done this, but we're going to do it today on this podcast. For this podcast right now, this is a message I got this morning at 9:18. Yo, I need your help. I lost $30,000 45 days ago on online blackjack. I promised myself not to touch this shit again, and it worked until last Saturday. I relapsed and lost another $20K. I need to find a solution for this. So these are the kind of messages that I get constantly. Right. And then there are messages of like really crazy ones like, hey man, I'm at the end. I'm going to kill myself. Like, what do I do?
Right.
And then there are messages like, hey, like, I've lost, I keep losing all of my money. Like I have enough money. I always pay my rent. I always pay my car note. And I always make sure like I pay my kids' school. But then anything else after that, like I can't even buy my kids a bagel on Sunday morning. And I'm like, okay, this is your starting point. Your end point will be that you're not going to pay your rent.
Right.
You're not going to pay your car. You're not going to pay your kids' school. So that brings me to my next.
And they're reaching out to you, by the way. Like these people, like that shows the unpreparedness of American society for this thing. Is like you by default are like the catch-all like dragnet for this issue when they could be like a clinician or someone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think it's twofold, right? The first part is that I've come out and I've been on Soft White Underbelly and I've said, hey, like, listen, I've lost, these astronomical amounts of money that most people may not even see in their lifetime. And by the way, it's relative because I always tell people I lost all these millions of dollars. If I had access to 100 million, I would have lost 120 million.
Right.
If I only had access to 10 grand, I would have somehow lost 20 grand. So it was all relative. And my bet started at $100 a bet, my first bet.
Yeah.
And then as I had this very successful ticket business, started making all this money, millions of dollars, those $100 bets were not scratching that itch for me anymore. It wasn't getting me, getting me going. So, but what does problem gambling actually look like before it comes obvious? Like what are some warning signs maybe that family members miss, wives or husbands miss, like some things that people can kind of look out for before it becomes like a full blown, I'm ready to kill myself and end it all.
Jesus. I mean, like to me, and this is probably the easiest thing would be for the gambler themselves to spot this. To me, it comes down to loss chasing. And so many of my solutions are basically like removing loss chasing. So loss chasing being like, oh, I bet $100, you lose. Oh, I'm so mad. I'm going to put in 200 to try to get it back. Yeah. Oh, I lose 200. Oh, I'm so mad. I'm going to try to get it back. So first of all, you're doing all sorts of things. First of all, you're not gambling rationally, right? You're just like, you're allowing the sort of frictionlessness of the platform to just like, it's sort of lubed up and you're just like riding down the slide, just like, and you're picking up speed as you go. And you're also sort of setting yourself a new benchmark. It's like, okay, the person could have come in, oh, I never gamble more than $100 a shot. All of a sudden they've now gambled 200. It's like, okay, now I guess I gamble 200 a shot. Oh, I guess now I gamble 500. And like, you're just like setting yourself up for future failures, even in sort of moments of more calm reflection. So to me, that's like, there's 9, diagnoses or 9 sort of criteria to meet, 4, you have to do 4 in the last year to meet a gambling diagnosis. You were probably doing like 10 somehow at the depths of your
20.
addiction. Yeah. but to me, like so much of it actually is like loss chasing is like the clearest indication and probably the most common one. Like I've definitely loss chased like in my life and I'm like the most recreational gambler you could possibly imagine. But that to me is the kind of thing where if that's recurring or if you see that happening, it's like, okay, that's like, that's our first flag that we're going to put up to sort of keep an eye on you kind of thing.
So I can't wait for this answer. How much responsibility do you think belongs to the individual gambler versus belongs to the sports books or the casino operators?
Right. Okay. So like the individual doesn't have no responsibility, right? It's not fair. Like this is America. Like we all have, whether we like it or not, all have some libertarian like beliefs enough that it's like we make our own luck, we shape our own lives, like for better or worse, and we should all like sort of bear the consequences of our actions. 100%. That being said, it can't be like a 22-year-old against $1 billion corporation that's trying to addict the 22-year-old to gambling. 2-year-olds probably if they could, but like one thing at a time.
I'm sure they could.
That's Roblox. So the individual bears. Okay, let me give you a metaphor that one of the guys I profile in the book gave that I really like. It's this idea that there are like landmines lying around in front of young men these days. Not everyone is going to step on the landmine, but some of them are. And the landmines have gotten bigger. They've gotten more powerful. I would say gambling, pornography, marijuana, alcohol, day trading, like you name it. There's just like so many landmines and some of them have grown in size, gambling being one of them. And so you have a responsibility, I guess, to like avoid stepping or like trying to dodge the landmines as much as you can. But it's also like, once you step on, once you run into trouble, once you start gambling, once the sort of wheels start turning, at some point, I don't think it's asking too much that like the companies or the platform have some, let's call them speed bumps along the way to like, I'm mixing metaphors here, but like to slow you down. And that no shit, you're a 23-year-old with an undeveloped prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that inhibits risk development or that shapes risk development. The part of your brain that shapes risk tolerance. And like, no wonder like you're not able to slow yourself down because your brain like is like biologically incapable of doing that. So again, do you have a responsibility to never pick up gambling in the first place? Maybe. Is that realistic to ask of a 22-year-old? No. Should the platforms that all in all, I think it's better that we have legalized gambling than not. But should we have, if we're going to have legalized gambling, have a way to make it not impossible, but at least difficult for that individual responsibility 22-year-old to like run into trouble? Yes. So I'm not going to like assign a percentage to it. The answer is, of course, both. But the responsible gambling stuff makes it seem like it's all on the individual, when it's definitely not.
So it's interesting you say that because this is an idea that I kind of have had, and I hope no one takes it, but.
Well, yeah, then say it on the podcast and no one takes it. Yeah.
I'm never going to like bring this one to fruition anyway, so someone can take it. Okay. You want to go buy a house, right? Let's say you're 23-year-old Jonathan. You're very successful. You're making all this money. You want to go buy a $2 million house. You go get a mortgage. They do this financial underwriting. They look every nook and cranny of your financial. Right. How was I at 24 years old allowed to go to the Wynn in Las Vegas, wire in $100,000, get a $200,000 marker?
Right. Without
Without question.
Yeah.
Without question. All they wanted to know was where the money was coming from. I said, the money's coming from a ticket business. I filled out this form. I'm not a money launderer. Sign. I consent. Sign. Boom. Credit scores, 800. Okay, great. Here you go. 200,000.
You could have bought a $300,000 house in Las Vegas and you would have had to fill out more paperwork.
By the way, if I tried to buy a house during that time for like a $2 or $3 million house, I would have gotten denied. But how... Like that is like the most simple guardrail that we could put up, which would never happen because sportsbook would say, "Oh, well, we it's free will. We should let people bet whatever they want. We let people drink however much they want.
Or shop, credit card. Yeah.
So I can go crazy on this.
Yeah.
This is the question I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
If a drug company marketed their drugs the way sportsbooks marketed gambling, would we tolerate it?
Right, like, those part of drug commercials where it's like, do not take if you're allergic to blah, like
side effects may include.
like suicide, but then like half the commercials like them like talking about like if you like have suicide and it's like literally a puppy running through on a beach or whatever, like. That's a funny thought. Like maybe we should have sports betting like have the same thing. It's like Jamie Foxx in a tuxedo, like playing music, but then it's like you may get addicted to gambling. If you get addicted to gambling, like you're lost. Like the symptoms may include like suicidal thoughts and like blah blah blah. I mean, we can get into prediction markets, which is first of all, props to us for spending this long without using the word prediction markets.
I know,
but like the marketing there is like I have all sorts of problems, by the way, with sports betting marketing, but like there's just no rules when it comes to prediction markets, and there's all sorts of just absolute bananas behavior that any other like legitimate financial institution would be required to follow that prediction markets have just decided
right past.
Just not to follow. And so sports betting marketing, all sorts of problems, all sorts of sort of this inculcation, this belief that it's easy to make money, that you can win. And then prediction markets are just like, oh, okay, not only can you win, like we're promising you generational wealth. We'll even like use the words the American dream or whatever to like, and we'll partner with like a 15-year-old on Twitter, I guess, and have them be a part of our affiliate marketing scheme. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah, it's almost like the drug companies are probably taking notes, like, oh shit, like I didn't know we could do that. Like they can't. They're more rule. Yeah,
I know. Is sports betting becoming the cigarette industry of our generation?
Yeah. Okay. I think I like the alcohol comparison more than cigarettes. Cigarettes for a couple things. So cigarettes, I think the stat is anyone who smokes even a single cigarette, like 60% of them become a daily smoker for at least a 7-day period, right? So it's like, this is obviously not true for gambling. Anyone who places one bet is not going to become like a habitual bettor. It's like, I think it's just more analogous to alcohol in that like you can have a drink with dinner you can have many drinks with dinner. You have many drinks with dinner many times a week for a 1 week, let's say, and no one's going to like flag you as being addicted to drinking. I think that's more analogous. I also think, fine, I'll be the first person on this podcast to give credit to the gambling industry. Like they at least acknowledge the problem gambling exists. It's not like the tobacco industry where they were like, no, like cigarettes do not cause cancer. Like there is no correlation. There is no association. Like clearly the gambling industry says, okay, we understand that there are people who are addicted. We think we do enough to protect them. You and I don't think that, but whatever. They at least they acknowledge whatever the equivalent is of like the cancer relationship between their product or the equivalent. But alcohol, that South Park ad that's like the South Park like fake alcohol ad where it's like you like money, you in a tuxedo, you driving a hot car, like you fucking this girl right now, like and then they're drinking and it's like please drink responsibly. You know what I mean? As like the upshot of like every like gambling or every alcohol ad. Like I think like gambling is sort of more analogous of like, oh, like please play responsibly, but here are all these like ads about how much money you can make on prediction market or on gambling, and like that is totally in contravention of the idea of like playing responsibly.
Yeah. Oh, I love this one. I came up with some good questions for you. What's something the gambling industry knows about human behavior that the average person does not?
Everything. They know everything about you. They have like armies of these PhD psychologists who I've been just, I guess, bought off and because they really love money, and they go and like all the little dark behavior tricks of like getting you like on Instagram late at night, like I said before, and keeping you on the apps. I would say lots of things. Okay. It's the equivalent of like at a casino where there's no clocks on the wall. There's oxygen being pumped in. There's free drinks. They can't like pump oxygen through your phone. Like they would if they could, but they can't. So they have to like design the platforms themselves in different ways to like basically mimic that phenomenon and like the continuous engagement. So things like even when you're on the FanDuel page, which I guess you haven't been on in a while, I hope. But, you know, like even the fact that the odds are sort of constantly adjusting and therefore they're always like lighting up. It's like, oh, it'll go from like minus 120 to minus 130. Like it just like, oh, but it's like feels like sort of engaging and like sort of like it is like a little bit like ASMR. If I'm correctly defining what ASMR, understanding what ASMR is, of like it's just like, sort of like soothing lights and the endless like I wasn't joking about Malaysian women's doubles badminton. Like you can bet on that in Colorado. Options of things to bet on, and so they understand like how to make an engaging app, how to send you a push notification on your payday, or like that you're vulnerable at night. I bet $100 that I was not intending to bet on Kalshi last night, like just because I was like up late, like texting with a friend about some other Kalshi market that I was trying to bet on, and I like got a little carried away. And now if James Corden says the word Mbappe tonight, like I'm going to make a bunch of money. But if he doesn't, and I like had no, and I like literally just like got carried away and put that money on. And like Kalshi didn't do anything to facilitate that. But even just like the existence of the platform and how easy it is to get money in and how easy and like, and how like sort of beautifully, frankly, like the apps are presented. It's just like, I'll use this word again, even though I'm going to get people weirded out, like lubricant. It's just like lubricates like your experience and your flow state, and you don't even think about what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, like the money's in there and the money's, and you're betting on something and you don't even know what you're betting on.
It happened to me a lot.
Not on James Corden to say the word Mbappe, I'm guessing. But
no,
like
I was not around. I stopped gambling December 2nd, 2024. So I was like right at the very beginning of like Polymarket,
right.
Kalshi.
Good timing.
Thank God, dude. Thank God. Because I would have thought that like, okay, I'm a horrible sports bettor, but now I can just like bet on Trump saying the word huge 10 times during the State of Union address. I'm like, oh, this is a lot.
I talk to people who even like are in recovery for gambling addiction, and then and this is true, like technically speaking, legally speaking, prediction markets are investment platforms, and they like think it's like investing, and they get into it not realizing that it's basically just a backdoor for sports gambling.
Yes.
And then they wind up sports gambling. Oh, my money's already in the thing. I was trying to bet on like whether the Carnival Cruise CEO was going to say the word tariffs in the next call, but then all of a sudden I ended up on the Eagles parlay. Like, yeah, just a mess.
Well, great segue.
Yeah.
If you're sitting across from every parent in America, what would you tell them right now about sports betting?
Yeah.
Or prediction markets?
Yeah. Well, it's all of a piece actually. It's okay. Well, so we gotta let's say teenage parents, because I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I'm not until they get on Roblox. I'm not worried about gambling. Roblox, by the way, if the CEO is watching this, you're literally the devil. So I would say first of all, we need to start with an acknowledgement, right? Like an acknowledgement that if your child, more likely than not your son, wants to gamble, they're going to find a way to do so. Better that to do so legally than illegally, but not to mention like dad putting your DraftKings app on their phone when you have to be 21 in most states to be on DraftKings. But whether it's Robinhood, which is only 18 plus, which is basically a gambling version of an investment platform, whether it's Counter-Strike skins, whether it's something like Roblox, which is a video game for 8-year-olds that has like a slot machine mechanic built onto it. Like your kid is going to find a way to gambling. So this is not the time for like the Nancy Reagan just say no to gambling. Your kid is going to find a way to do it, and maybe already has. And like the average age of exposure to pornography in this country is like 12. Like gambling, I'm guessing it might be 8, like truly, because of some of these like video game, like loot box mechanics. So the conversation, first of all, has to start from an acknowledgement of that point, even if you're from like a religious community that doesn't believe in gambling, right? You sort of have to acknowledge that like, whether you like it or not, your kid is going to see this, is going to have access to it. And your kid needs to understand, first of all, that gambling addiction exists. Like what is going to happen to their undeveloped brain, like when they start gambling, like it's fun. Like, yeah, no shit, it's fun. Like that's like this is how they get you. And I'm not saying that this is what the parent needs to communicate to the child, but this is what the parent needs to understand, right? Which is that the sort of like with drugs, like the younger you start using drugs, as you get older, you sort of need larger amounts or different drugs in heavier doses to get the same high. And the same thing, you start gambling casually as a teenager, you're going to need to gamble with more money as a 20-year-old, 30-year-old to get that same sort of dopamine delivery that you were getting as a 16-year-old. So, and then one more point. again, there's a difference between what I would say to parents and what I do say to parents, and then what I would talk to kids. And no one lets me near their high school students because I can't be trusted to like deliver this in a way that's actually like, what do I know about 16-year-olds? But I do think the way to deliver this actually is through this idea that the house always wins, and that okay, I'll be guilty of like feeding into this conspiratorial mindset that is basically destroying America. But like, I think you could apply that to sports gambling very easily and say like, hey, like, these companies know what time you wake up. They know where you get your money. They know like how your brain works. They're going to trick you. It's not your fault that you're gambling. They're going to get you. And I think that is a kind of message that is a lot more resonant with the 16-year-old to be like, oh yeah, like they might think, and maybe you did think like, oh, it's so cool. It's so adult to gamble. It's 21 plus, but I'm only 19. So I found legal access. Like, I'm so cool. But it's like, no, you're just a sucker. Like they got you hooked. It's not just like, it's not cool to like, I don't know, like be a shill for big oil or like 19-year-olds don't do that kind of thing. But you know what I mean? Just like it's not cool to like be a corporate pawn. Like that's all you're doing by going on DraftKings as a 19-year-old is like they have you right where they want you. Again, please do not invite me to come to your high school. I have a bunch of friends who would do a much better job of delivering that message, including our friend Isaac Roseberman. He's great. Please. Yeah.
He is great. He has a great way of connecting with, I think, the younger kids.
Yeah, it helps to be 10 years younger than me. Yeah. Not have 2 kids. Yeah.
What have you learned from people who have successfully recovered from a gambling addiction, and what role do organizations like Gamblers Anonymous play in that?
Yeah. Well, okay. I got to ask you about Gamblers Anonymous because this has always sort of baffled me. So gambling, as you might know, is the only behavioral addiction sort of that's officially diagnostically an addiction by the American Psychiatric Association. So even though you're not ingesting, inhaling anything, it's changing your brain chemistry, your dopamine delivery.
For sure.
And this is not true for everyone, but it's true for many people. Like going to Gamblers Anonymous, being with other people, somehow has the ability to like counteract the chemical dopamine delivery process in your brain without like, I mean, some people need to take melatonin to sleep or all sorts of other things, but like without ingesting like methadone or like a counter substance, you're able to like rewire your brain chemistry. It's always been like astounding to me that works. Not for everybody, obviously, but that Gamblers Anonymous can be so effective.
Interesting. Very interesting. So here's my take on it. I am a very satisfied customer of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm a very satisfied customer of Gamblers Anonymous. And what I found was that for 12 years, I'm going to stick to just gambling on this one. I tried stopping gambling every which way possible besides Gamblers Anonymous. My first GA meeting, 2015, I got up in front of this room of men, about 100 men in there, and I said, I'm not like you guys. If I just win, I don't have to come back here anymore. Yeah. And they all were just kind of like, all right, buddy, we'll see you soon. We'll see you soon, you know? And you know the place in LA called Beit Teshuva?
Not personally, but I've heard of it. Yeah,
they have one of the top gambling programs in the country. Yeah. It's funded by UCLA. Dr. Timothy Fong.
The name means like house of like forgiveness, basically, or like
yes.
Yeah.
I went there. I worked with Dr. Fong. I had
who's a friend of mine, by the way. Great dude.
Love him.
Great dude.
Love him. I had worked with Brad Ruderman as my gambling coach. I was going to my gambling coach sessions with like 4 different parlays live, ready to like in action, and I couldn't stop. And then I finally went to Gamblers Anonymous, and what I think my biggest takeaway from Gamblers Anonymous is that I really have come to accept and believe, whether people believe it or not, I believe this. Gambling is not a financial disease, it's an emotional disease. It has nothing. At a certain point in my gambling addiction, it had nothing to do about the money anymore.
Yeah.
It had everything to do with escaping the dopamine, being in action, and not being in reality. So for me, the community of Gamblers Anonymous, what it has allowed me to do was to be able to come down there. And I came down there December 2nd with, I'm in still almost $1 million worth of debt. I was suicidal with a 10-month-old baby, and I didn't see a way out anymore. I was like, yo, this is 12 years. Like, I had a plan to commit suicide. It was like really, really bad. And I went down to Gamblers Anonymous, and I remember just like all these guys that just came up to me, they were just like, dude, let's just keep this simple. Don't gamble today, and you're going to be fine. The money is going to work itself out. It's not about the money. You're not here because of the money. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, like, you'll understand. Just keep coming back, make some phone calls, call other compulsive gamblers, and you'll see what we're talking about. And I was so desperate at that point, Jonathan. I was like, whatever these fucking guys tell me to do, like this is it. Like if this doesn't work, like I'm cooked, you know? And I just did everything they told me to do. And like what I found was like, I'd talk to you and you'd be like, dude, like I'm in this program 10 years. I took a mortgage out against my parents' house. They had no idea about it. I lost the mortgage on their house, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm 10 years sober. I'm making an honest living. I paid back all of my debts. I live a good life. I just don't gamble anymore. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And then I talked to another guy. I was like, hey, like I lost 20 grand, but like that was enough for me. But it was an emotional disease and I was lying and I was cheating and I was manipulating. I was like, oh, you stole money from your parents too? Oh, you stole money from oh, okay.
Like, no offense to Tim Fong, but he can only like meet you. So like a clinician can only meet you like so far.
And I think just that community of people who have either done exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
Or who have done 10 times worse than what you've done. Something about it just makes you feel like, okay, like I feel safe here. I feel understood here. And then as time goes on, I really started to learn like, okay, like this really had nothing to do with the money at a certain point. It was just like, I needed that feeling like of my ego wrapped in that like big shot gambler mentality. And then I started looking at all my other behaviors. I gambled in every way of my life, not just on sports, but like I gambled in relationships. I gambled in business. I gambled in driving my car on the highway. I like, you know, going 100 miles per hour all the time. Like just constant things that were lighting up my dopamine receptors that gambling started for me. That dopamine hit, that gambling initially got me going. So I think, listen, I know, you know, my GA room on 31st Street, there's about 100 guys who come every week. And I would say about every week, there's about 20 new guys that come. And the following week, only 1 or 2 of them stay. And it's a revolving door. And I'm not here to say, I think as time has gone on, and I've interviewed a lot of people, I'm not here to say that Gamblers Anonymous is the only way you can stop gambling. For me personally, it's the only thing that worked. I had every therapist. I was fucking meeting one-on-one with Dr. Timothy Fong, who's like
the guy. Yep. The guy.
So for me, that's the only thing that's worked. However, I am open to hearing other solutions and ideas of like, hey, people can recover and stop gambling and like figure out a way to pay back their debts and repair their relationship at home and all these things. But like the landscape of it is just really starting, right? Like Gamblers Anonymous was not this popular 10 years ago. And it wasn't this popular.
Didn't have to be.
It didn't have to be.
I would say, just to your point, like every gambling addict story is different and they're also all the same.
Yeah.
Like there's like clearly through lines or different elements or whatever but maybe one of the differences you're talking is for some people, GA is the end of the road. It's like this like nice sort of like complement to the work that they're doing in therapy. And for some people, like it is therapy and it actually is enough. But I've also talked to people who are sort of skeptical of GA. They see it as fellowship. They understand its value, but it's like, no, that's not getting your ass in treatment. But for some people, like clearly it's enough. Like it's very, really inexplicable. And it's really an amazing, I'm reading this book called What Would You Do Alone in a Cage with Nothing But Cocaine? Okay, it's about this.
You're asking the wrong guy. I would do the cocaine.
Okay, but actually you would, because there's this experiment with this rat. Okay, it's in a cage with nothing but cocaine, with nothing but a lever, and every time it presses the lever, it gets cocaine. What does it do? It takes cocaine until it dies. If you give that same rat the cocaine lever and then another lever that lets it press the lever and it gets to spend time with other rats, what does it do? Maybe it'll do cocaine a little while, but also will spend time with other rats. And the idea is if we think about someone with an addiction as basically as someone who like sees themselves as having no other options, but we begin to present them with other options. This is like, the book has all sorts of other sort of heretical ideas about the brain model of addiction, which we can talk about or not. I don't know how many neuroscientists are listening to this who are going to take issue, but it's clear that there is some curative element to like fellowship and to spending time with other people that provides an alternative to the drug of choice in gambling, alcohol, you name it. It's just crazy to me that it actually works on a brain chemistry level, that like that can be a substitute for or a complement to or the thing that like rewires your brain chemistry to change the dopamine habit, unlike like in a way that like methadone would for heroin addiction, for example.
I find GA to be an incredible foundation to recovery. I don't think it's the foundation, the pillars, the top of the house, the roof, and the furniture inside the house. I think it's an incredibly strong foundation that can help you withstand any hurricane or tornado that may come in life, because life still happens even in recovery. But I have found that the 12 steps have helped me tremendously. And what the 12 steps also are, to sum it up, it's basically trust in God, make amends with others, clean house, and then help others. That's essentially the glue of the program. And you do that one-on-one work with a sponsor. But I'm also in individual therapy, which I think individual therapy is like, you're getting into like some really deep shit that you're not going to get into when you get to raise your hand and share for 3 minutes in a room with 100 other guys.
But this is where I wonder how many of those, and I genuinely wonder, like how many of those guys, like, and this is actually a problem that I work on the American Institute for Boys and Men. Like one of our issue areas is like men are much more likely than women to like say they have no close friends, say they have no one they could call like in an emergency. How many of those men maybe turn to gambling out of loneliness, or like are part of GA out of loneliness? And like that was actually the issue that they were sort of like covering up with gambling. It gave them a different kind of fellowship that they've now replaced with GA. I think for some people, gambling is a symptom of other, for some people, of course, is for lots of people, it's a cause of other things, but for many people, it's a symptom. And then I wonder if GA in this way is providing the same thing that gambling was providing, and that's why it is able to work at a sort of a chemical level.
I always tell people drugs and alcohol were not the problem. They were my solution to my problem. My problem was me.
Yeah.
And
but did you feel lonely? Like the lonely, maybe I don't want to zero in on loneliness, but like, did you feel lonely? Do you feel lonely now? Is that what you're getting out of GA?
You know, to not get too crazy deep into this, but
it's your podcast, so you can do whatever you want.
I felt like, you know, my parents both worked a lot growing up. My parents weren't around that much. I grew up with a nanny there a lot. And I kind of started getting in trouble as a young kid, and I subconsciously understood that the more I got in trouble, the more my parents would be involved, because like there was shit going on. When things were good, they would, you know, kind of go back to their careers and whatnot. And I think that's what got me into it. And then I got addicted to the dopamine. And then, you know, when I went to college, I tried Xanax for the first time, and I'll never forget, like this kid was like, we were pledging a fraternity. He was like, we got a long night. He's like, just take half a bar, take half a Xanax. I'm like, nah, man, I don't fuck with pills, so I don't do that shit. He's like, just try it. I was like, all right. 20 minutes later, I just remember being like, wow, I feel amazing. I want to feel like this forever. Yeah. And that started everything for me. But the gambling for me, like just that action, man, like there's nothing, and I'll even say this now, you know, a year and a half in, there's nothing in recovery that can replace the highs of the highs that you get from gambling. But there's also nothing in recovery that will bring you to the lows of gambling. And I've said this many times, gambling, I was living in the 9s or the 10s, or I was living in the 0s and the 1s. Life's supposed to be a 4, 5, and 6. And then like, you know, you get married, 9 or 10, you have a kid, 9 or a 10, you lose a parent, 0 or a 1, something tragic happens, 0 or 1. But like, you know, you don't self-destruct even more. When I'm gambling or I'm drinking, I'm drugging, bro, it's self-destruction 24/7. I can't help it.
And even the 9s or 10s, it's like artificial. I'm not trying. You're not saying that like it's as fun to like win $1 million on FanDuel as it is to like have a kid. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But by the way, I mean, I promised my wife I would stop betting when our child was born. Our child was born, and like I was gambling that night, holding my newborn child. And, you know, my biggest regret is gambling the first 10 months of my child's life. Not because of the money. Forget the financial destruction I caused. Like, my wife came on the podcast and she's like, I did postpartum alone. And like, unfortunately, you taught me that like I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was, and that like I thought I needed you for all these big moments. I'm like, I don't. I was like, whoa. You know? And like, that's
terrifying.
The ramification of what gambling did. Forget the money. I was nowhere to be found. It's the time.
It's the time.
Yeah. It's the time. there's no joy. You're not present for anything. You're just like, we could be sitting here. I'm talking to you. My head's over there. And like you said, the accessibility of it has just made it so much easier to just detach from reality. You've spent years studying this, and I appreciate all the work you're doing and will continue to do. And hopefully there's some collaborative efforts we can work on together. I've lived it, unfortunately. But if someone right now who's listening is chasing losses, hiding bets, or lying to their family and feels trapped, what would you want them to hear today?
I mean, a lot of it is, and again, I'm no clinician, so I'll say that by way of disclosure. But I would say a lot of it is sort of to the point of this podcast, which is I think we have a huge problem where gambling addiction and addiction of all kinds are still stigmatized, and people are afraid to come forward, and they're helpless, and then they're embarrassed that they feel so helpless, and then all of a sudden, and gambling addiction is so insidious in this belief that if I just hit this parlay, I can pay off all my debt. And no one's going to think like, oh, if I just like take this shot of alcohol, it'll cure me of alcoholism. Like, that's not how alcoholism works, but it is how gambling works. And so I would say, again, easier for me to say sit in an armchair at a nice office building in New York, but you're going to stop now, or you're going to stop 20 years from now, or 5 months from now, whenever. Like, better to stop now, right? Better to seek help if you're resisting going to therapy or resisting going to GA. Again, easier for me to say without the life experience, without not being a clinician. But I also, again, to the point of your podcast, like, clearly you are not alone in this. To the stories that you were sharing from the guys who you were talking to in GA, like, everyone has been through, not everyone, many people have had similar experiences, done similar things, done probably worse things than you. And I don't think this is all about your individual failing and your moral failing, your inability to control yourself. We can talk later about the policy implications and the companies and whatever, but first, let's get you right, and let's get you in a situation where you can sort of better understand what's been done to you or what's happening to you. And then, listen to next week's episode to find out more.
My answer to that would be recovery is possible. It's possible for anybody, and recovery is also free of charge. You don't have to pay for it. It's available. Gamblersanonymous.org. You can type in your zip code, find meetings near you. Gamblersinrecovery.com. 24 hours, 7 days a week, online Gamblers Anonymous Zoom meetings all over the world. There's a bunch of other resources out there.
Problem gambling. I don't know if you ever go on the problem gambling subreddit, which is actually how I found one of the guys who I profile in my book.
Yeah.
But people if you want some immediate fellowship, it's immediate story sharing. If you want to read other people's stories sort of immediately and be like, oh, I don't have it as bad as that guy or whatever. If that's helpful for you, it's on there.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Take it with a grain of salt if you want to, whether it's true or not. There's years and years and years worth of people who I promise are in the exact same situation as your listeners or whoever else, and probably have it worse, frankly.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. We covered a lot of topics today. We have 3 more hours to do on prediction markets, I feel. Yeah. We might have to bring Jonathan back for part 2 and a part 3. But as always, thank you for watching. In the description of this episode, I'm going to link Jonathan's socials. I'm going to link a link to his Amazon to buy his books. Any other ways that people can find you, I'll link as well.
Yeah.
And thank you, as always. Thank you for what you're doing. As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.